Welcome to Art Explained, the home of art, art history, stories, and art education for all who are interested. Sir Peter Paul Rubens lived between June 28, 1577 to May 30th, 1640. He was a Flemish artist and diplomat from the Duchy of Brabant in southern Netherlands, now known as Belgium. He is considered the most influential artist of the Flemish Baroque tradition. Rubens' highly charged compositions reference erudite aspects of classical and Christian history. His unique and immensely popular Baroque style emphasized movement, color, and sensuality. The Baroque style followed the immediate dramatic artistic style promoted in the Counter-Reformation. Rubens was a painter who produced altarpieces, portraits, landscapes, and historical paintings of mythological and allegorical subjects. He was also a prolific designer of cartoons for the Flemish tapestry workshops and of frontispieces for the publishers in Antwerp. In addition to running a large workshop in Antwerp that produced paintings popular with nobility and art collectors throughout Europe, Rubens was a classically educated humanist scholar and diplomat who was knighted by both Philip IV of Spain and Charles I of England. Rubens was a prolific artist. The catalog of his works by Michael Jaffe lists 1,403 pieces, excluding numerous copies made in his workshop. His commissioned works were mostly history paintings, which included religious and mythological subjects and hunting scenes. For example, this masterpiece, Raising of the Cross Crucifixion of Jesus, he painted this altarpiece in Antwerp's Cathedral of Our Lady in 1610. The Raising of the Cross was the first important religious commission Rubens received after he returned home from Italy. He lived in Italy for 8 years, and that is where he studied Roman antiquities and the art of Renaissance, Mannerist, and early Baroque painters. With this sensational painting, Rubens introduced the Baroque into Northern art. For decades, local artists had been producing inert, classicist work, and nothing near this monumental size. The painting is 15 feet high, and the center panel alone is 11 feet wide, which is 4.5 meters high by 3.3 meters wide. The twisting, almost impossible poses, the exaggerated muscled bodies and expressive faces all tell us that Rubens was greatly influenced by Michelangelo and by Italian Mannerism. Mannerism was a reaction against the rules of classical art, seeking ambiguity and tension instead of the harmony and repose of the classical concept. Imagine the effect this must have had when it was unveiled. In the Gospel of Christ, Christ looks up and says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." While a soldier was helping to lift Christ on the cross, his eyes were expressing the horror of how it must feel to be nailed to a cross, and the fear of what would happen to him if he disobeyed his orders. Would they also nail him to a cross? The composition is so great that we can see the physical weight of Christ's body and the heavy wooden cross, as well as the spiritual weight of the crucifixion of the Savior. He painted portraits, especially of friends, and self-portraits, and in later life painted several landscapes. Rubens designed tapestries and prints as well as his own house. He also oversaw the ephemeral decorations. He wrote a book with illustrations of the palaces in Genoa, which was published in 1622 as Palazzi di Genova. Everything he did to the extreme. For example, painting sex and violence more sensually than any other Northern European painter, using brighter colors, using starker contrasts of light and shade, and even increasing the volume of paint. When viewing his paintings, it's as if you can actually hear the screams of the victims or feel the love he expresses to his lovers. Rubens was an avid art collector and had one of the largest collections of arts and books in Antwerp. He was also an art dealer and is known to have sold an important number of art objects to George Villiers, the first Duke of Buckingham. His father was Jan Rubens, a Calvinist, and his mother was Maria Pieplings. His parents fled Antwerp for Cologne in 1568. They wanted to escape the increased religious turmoil and the persecution of Protestants that was going on during the Duke of Alba's rule of the Habsburg Netherlands. In 1570, Jan Rubens became the legal advisor and later the lover of Anna of Saxony, the second wife of William I of Orange. She settled at her court in Siegen in 1570, later giving birth to her daughter Christine in 1571, who was fathered by Jan Rubens. Many still wonder if Peter Paul Rubens ever met Christine. Following Jan Rubens' imprisonment for the affair, Peter Paul Rubens was born in Siegen in June 28, 1577. The family returned to Cologne the next year. In 1589, 2 years after his father's death, Rubens moved with his mother Maria Pieplings to Antwerp, where he was raised as a Catholic. In Antwerp, Rubens received a Renaissance humanist education, studying Latin and classical literature. At the age of 14, he began his artistic apprenticeship with Tobias Verheydt. Subsequently, he studied under two of the city's leading painters of the time, the late Mannerist artists Adam van Noort and Otto van Veen. In 1600, Rubens traveled to Italy. He stopped first in Venice, where he saw paintings by Titian, Veronese, and Tintoretto, before settling in Mantua at the court of Duke Vincenzo I Gonzaga. The coloring and compositions of Veronese and Tintoretto had an immediate effect on Rubens' painting, and his later mature style was profoundly influenced by Titian. With financial support from the Duke, Rubens traveled to Rome by way of Florence in 1601. There he studied classical Greek and Roman art and copied the works of the Italian masters. The Hellenistic sculptor Laocoon and his sons influenced him greatly, as did the art of Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo da Vinci. He was also influenced by the recent highly naturalistic paintings by Caravaggio. Rubens later made a copy of Caravaggio's Entombment of Christ and recommended his patron, the Duke of Mantua, to purchase the Death of the Virgin, now exhibited at the Louvre. Rubens traveled to Spain on a diplomatic mission in 1603. He delivered gifts from the Gonzagas to the court of Philip III. While there, he studied the extensive collections of Raphael and Titian that had been collected by Philip II. He also painted an equestrian portrait of the Duke of Lerma during his stay in Madrid that demonstrates the influence of works like Titian's Charles V at Mulberg. The Duke of Lerma, completed in 1548, is now on exhibit at the Prado Museum in Madrid. This journey marked the first of many during his career that combined art and diplomacy. He returned to Italy in 1604, where he remained for the next 4 years, first in Mantua and then in Genoa and Rome. In Genoa, Rubens painted numerous portraits, such as the Marchesa Brigida Spinola Doria, now on exhibit at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And the portrait of Maria di Antonio Serra Pallavicini, in a style that influenced later paintings by Anthony van Dyck, Joshua Reynolds, and Thomas Gainsborough. Upon hearing of his mother's illness in 1608, he returned to Antwerp. However, she died before he arrived home. His return coincided with a period of renewed prosperity in Antwerp, brought about by the signing of the Treaty of Antwerp in April 1609, which initiated the 12 Years' Truce. During his first stay in Rome, Rubens completed his first altarpiece commission, St. Helena with the True Cross, for the Roman Church of Santa Croce in Jerusalem. While there, he absorbed the sculptural forms of Michelangelo, the light of Caravaggio, and the colors of Titian. We can clearly see the influences of the Italian masters. Rubens always retained the lucidity of Flemish art. He didn't mimic the Italians, but through their influence, he was able to develop his own unique style. Rubens was confident of his exceptional skill, but was also very charming and had excellent manners. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by selecting the subscribe button below. Please give us a thumbs up. Those small gestures help us a great deal. Also, please feel free to share the video on your preferred social media service. We are super excited about you watching our video and look forward to your continued support. It means the world to us. See you in the following video.